Well, hello friends and welcome to Kalos. Today I want to attempt a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon X using only the Fire type. When it comes to the three starter types, the Fire type tends to get the short end of the stick. In a lot of these runs that we've attempted before, there's not a lot of encounters or they have a very shallow move pool. I'm looking at you, Diamond and Pearl. We still haven't done that run. We will get to it eventually. Hopefully here in Generation 6, some of those things have been rectified with some really interesting encounters. There are actually quite a few in this run, and we have a little bit of type diversity, which is nice. Of course, we have to get dressed and ready for our adventure, speak to our mom, and go get a starter. Unique to Kalos is the fact that we have 4 rivals, Tierno, Trevor, Shauna, and Serena, none of which we can nickname. They do want to give us a nickname, which is completely backwards from what we're used to. I'm going to have them call me Algo, but you guys know as well as I know that they're actually the in-game algorithm that we are going to try to beat via a solo mission. The real-life algorithm, known as the YouTube algorithm, though, I need your help to defeat. You can help me defeat it by liking the video, commenting on the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, and of course sharing this video with anybody you see fit. Week in and week out, we do this joke, and I say week in and week out. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. Everything has been going very, very well. I can't express it enough. Thank you guys so much. This, of course, is one of those rare instances where we get to pick a starter and use it through the entire run. We, of course, choose Fennekin, the Fire-type starter. It does evolve into a Fire Psychic type, which I think is very interesting and very unique. I'm excited to see what this Pokemon can do. And let's meet our starter, Lane the Fennekin. It has a hasty plus speed minus defense nature. There is a name theme. Can you guys guess it? Maybe not from this Pokemon, but we will have more very soon. But first we have to deliver a letter to our mom from Professor Sycamore. I think this is a love letter. I'm not sure, and even of course she makes that same notion. Interesting. We'll put that on the back burner as we get our hands on Pokeballs, officially starting our run. This is also a rare instance where we're going to be able to collect quite a few team members before we take on the first gym. Starting off on Route 2, we catch a fletchling named Kurt. It has a Brave plus attack and minus speed nature. It's not a fire type yet, but it will be when it evolves. Third on the team from Santaloon Forest is a Pansage that we named Janice. It has a Lonely plus attack and minus defense nature. And rounding out the team for now is a Litleo we caught on Route 22. It has a Naive plus speed and minus special defense nature. We nicknamed it Bradley. And can you guys guess the name theme with these 4 names? If you can, put your guess in the comment section below. On Route 22, we can run into Psyducks and Litleos that give early game special attack EV, so we're going to do a fair bit of training before we take on Viola and her bug types. Now, whilst we do this, week in and week out, I typically thank you guys for the continued support, and sometimes I feel like that's a little bit copy-paste, print, repetitive type stuff. I really do mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys so much. The continued support each and every week get me in this chair doing these videos each and every week. Because honestly, if there was no support, it would be very, very hard to sit here and do these videos. I love the comments. I love all of the interactions. There have been some really awesome comments lately. One person said that, hey, if this channel ever hits 10 million subs, let's say, never change. And to that I say, yeah, we're not gonna. They say money changes you, and I don't know if that's true. I would love to be given the opportunity, but even still, it's going to be me that does the voice and everything else of this video for the foreseeable future, so you're going to get what you see right here. There still have been, of course, the comments where people are like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. Look, I get it. When you find good content that you enjoy, there's a few things that happen. The first thing that you do is you binge that creator's content until you can't watch any more. The next thing you do is you look for similar content. Unfortunately, you won't find the exact same content, but you will find similar. Case in point, Sylph, Antler Boy, and Flygon are 3 great Nuzlockers. They all make great videos, they're high quality, they're entertaining, but they are 3 different styles of videos. And I have watched almost every single video that each one of them have put out, but you don't go into a Flygon video expecting Antlers video, and vice versa. The same thing goes for this channel. I'm not trying to be the next Flygon. I'm not trying to be the next Sylph. I'm not trying to be the next Antler. I'm just me. Just a lowly little Nuzlocker. It is still funny to see those comments, and I do appreciate them regardless, but I also want people to keep in mind the 1% of you that like to leave negative comments. This is a real person behind the mic. This is not a robot. This isn't AI. Maybe we should enlist the help of AI. It would make doing this and writing this a little bit easier. I, of course, don't write a script, but having one would be a lot easier than just winging this off the cuff. Nonetheless, most of the people that do these videos are sitting behind the mic. They're putting in the work. They're people. They're not robots. So go easy on them. The beauty of content creation is there's a lot of it out there. So if you watch a certain video and you don't like what you're seeing, you don't like what you're hearing, you don't like the fact that they don't have music or whatever the case may be, you can go to the next person and see if you like their videos, and then you can keep going until you find something that you like. There is millions and millions of videos to watch, so why stop at one? Of course, I shouldn't say that because each and every comment obviously is good for the YouTube algorithm, so maybe scratch everything I just said. Just come on in and hate the video as much as you want, or like it as much as you want. Either way, it helps me out a ton. Oh, now going up against Viola and her bug types, you would think it would be a very easy matchup for our fire types. However, the Surskit she leads with has water sport, and I know that thing's going to go for it to weaken our fire type attacks. I can't one-shot it, so I've come up with a little bit different plan. This requires us to lead with Bradley and set up a couple of workups. This is going to raise our attack and special attack, as the Surskit does in fact go for water sport. That's okay, we have a different plan. Now Surskit opts to go for a quick attack, doing a little bit of chip damage against us as we set up a second workup. We get hit with one more quick attack, and then we can one-shot the Surskit with a stab headbutt. This brings out Vivillon, and this thing is going to go for infestation, so we had to make this selection very selectively. Bradley stays out and gets hit with an infestation, which is going to keep us in, doing a little bit of chip damage before we fire off a headbutt that does well over half. A little bit more chip damage and then another infestation takes us all the way down to 24 HP before we fire off one more headbutt, knocking out the Vivillon, winning us the first gym badge. After defeating the gym leader, the level cap goes up to level 25, and I spend some time grinding Kurt up to level 16 so it will evolve into a Fletchender. Now it loses its normal typing and gains the fire typing, making it a viable encounter on the team. I know people have said just use the Pokemon if it eventually becomes the type you're running, but we still want to try to stay as true to these runs as we can. This brings us to Lumio City, which is going to be the set for the Pokemon Legends ZA game that I'm very excited for. I don't care what the negative people out there say. I think people like to be negative just for the sake of being negative. I'm excited to see the game. The only thing that I hope it does is it fixes the navigation of this town. It is very hard to navigate. The camera angle is sometimes very finicky. Other than that, I really hope they bring back this art style for the game. I doubt it, seeing what we've seen so far, but it would be a cool callback because I absolutely love this style. And now I understand why my mom was so excited for the love letter. Look at that individual right there. Okay, Mom, I see you. I see you. Defeating Sexy Moore, we can get our hands on a Charmander that we named Amy. It has a bold plus defense minus attack nature. That's perfectly fine. I probably should have played this in Pokemon Y for a better Mega Stone. With the level cap so high, we can get a couple of evolutions on the team, getting a little bit more bulk, starting out with Lane evolving into a Braxian? Braxian? I have no idea how you pronounce that Pokemon's name. Tell me in the comments below. Either way, this is still a great addition to the team. Still a pure fire type, however. We get another evolution with the OG fire starter, Amy evolving from a Charmander into a Charmeleon. Now, moments ago I said I wish we played Pokemon Y. We could have got a Charizard Y Megastone, making things a lot easier than the Charizard X, but I don't think we're actually going to use Megas in this run. The reason I say we're not going to use Megas in this run is because There are only two encounters that have Mega Evolutions, Houndoom and Charizard. Houndoom, you can't get its Mega Stone until post-game, and then Charizard, the Charizard X is not as good as Charizard Y because Charizard Y has a higher special attack and sets up the sun with Drought. Really, I shouldn't be using Megas except for the Lysander battle and Diantha, and both of those battles are not going to go well with just Charizard. We're going to have to come up with better strategies, so I think we're not going to see any Mega Evolutions in this run. But speaking of evolution, we have one more evolution before taking on Grant, with Janice evolving into a Simisear. Grant and his Rock-type Pokemon pose a decent threat to our Fire-type team. Luckily for us, we can get the TM for Rock Smash in Ambrit Town just before taking on the gym, and his lead Amora is quad weak, being Ice Rock. Janice can learn the new TM Rock Smash, so we fire one off, and unfortunately, even though it's quad super effective, it leaves Amora on a sliver. This means we get tagged with a Thunder Wave, paralyzing us and lowering our speed. Grant then goes for a Hyper Potion, fully healing up the Amora, but because of the defense drop, we can take it out with a quad super effective Rock Smash. Tyrunt then comes out, and this Pokemon is very scary. It of course outspeeds us and goes for Bite. For the Paraflinch hacks, we do not get flinched, we do not get paralyzed, we break through to tag this thing with a Yawn. I could swap my Pokemon here, but this thing is going to go for Rock Tomb, and I don't want to swap anybody into a speed lowering move. So Janice makes the ultimate sacrifice so the rest of the team can go on. Tyrunt falls asleep as we bring out Amy, who can fire off a clean Dragon Rage, doing well over half of its health, and then Tyrunt cooperates, staying asleep, and one more Dragon Rage takes it out, winning us the second gym badge. This was one of those needs of the one versus the needs of the many, and Janice unfortunately took the fall so the team could continue on. You will not be forgotten, Janice. We could have done this before taking on Grant, but on Route 10 we catch a Houndour named Wayne. It has a mild plus special attack and minus defense nature. Now, whilst doing some EV training, we get Houndour to level 24, where it evolves into a Houndoom, the first fully evolved Pokemon on the team. It would be cool to have this thing's Mega Stone before the post-game, but alas, we're not going to get it, and we're not going to need it. Typically, our rivals don't pose much of a challenge to us until later in the game. However, Serena does have a Frogadier that could be an issue, and I'm going to show most of these battles because we have to come up with different strategies. We get flinch from a fake out from the Meowstic, and then we flinch it with a Bite and take it out with a second. This is going to bring out her Frogadier, but it only has Quick Attack and Water Pulse. Luckily for us, it opts to go for Quick Attack, so we can trade some blows back and forth with a Bite, then a Quick Attack Bite to take it out. Absol then comes out, and we're sitting at 35 HP after the level up. I don't want to get crit from a Slash, so I opt to swap into Amy, who comes in on a Quick Attack. We then fire off a Dragon Rage, doing a decent amount of damage, over half of its health, and then we get crit from a Slash. To be safe here, I do decide to swap in Kurt. Didn't think we could survive another Slash, but we get hit with a Quick Attack. I then misclick and go for Roost, because that's where Aerial Ace used to be before I swapped the moves back around. After we get hit with a Bite and activating our Flame Body ability, we can take out the Absol with an Aerial Ace.
What are you gonna do about it, eyebrows?
Karina and her fighting types are up next for our gym challenge. We had a couple of different options when preparing for this battle. We could have led Kurt in its flying type moves, but I opt to go for Lane and psychic types. We're not quite a psychic type yet, and we do miss out on the kill here against Mienfoo, leaving it on a sliver of health after a Psybeam. We then get hit with a critical hit power-up punch down to half health. Karina then goes for a Hyper Potion, fully healing up the Mienfoo, and we get a more favorable range with Psybeam, taking this thing out in a single hit. Machoke then comes out next and falls to a single super effective Psybeam, and this just leaves her Hawlucha. Because we're sitting at half health, I decide to swap into Kurt, who tanks a Flying Press on the swap in very nicely. We do get outsped and hit with a power-up punch, which is a little bit concerning as Aerial Ace takes Hawlucha into low yellow health. We get outsped and hit with another Flying Press that, if it had crit, would have definitely taken us out, but we go unpunished. Our Flame Body is activated, but that doesn't matter because an Aerial Ace takes out the Hawlucha, winning us the third gym badge. In between the third and fourth gym, we have another rival battle with Serena. Her Frogadier only has quick attack and water pulse at this point still, so I'm still trying to figure out my strategy as we move forward. We got a little bit of room for error in this battle. Turn 1, the Meowstic goes for a fake out, which is annoying, but my plan is to do some setup. We get off a Howl the next turn and get hit with a Disarming Voice for a little bit of chip. A second Howl is then set up as Meowstic goes for a Light Screen, which is perfectly fine because we are running a physical moveset. We then set up a third Howl, get hit with one more Disarming Voice to about half health, and then we can take out the Meowstic with a +3 stab super effective bite. Frogadier then comes out and does not go for quick attack, so we take it out with a +3 stab bite. Very nice. Absol is last out. It does go for quick attack, doing a decent amount of damage, leaving us at 27 HP before we take it out with a +3 stab Fire Fang. Ramos is fourth up for the gym challenge, and his grass type team does not stand a chance. I could have led with any one of these Pokemon, but I opt to lead Kurt against the Jumpluff. We outspeed and take it out with a stab super effective Aerial Ace, and second out is his Go-Goat. Now this Pokemon is a bit more bulky as it does hang on in low red health from a stab super effective Aerial Ace. The incoming takedown does a decent amount of damage to us, to about half health, and then the recoil doesn't unfortunately take out the Go-Goat. This puts it in a heal lock, using one of Ramos's Hyper Potions before we bring it right back down to red health. Another Hyper Potion and Aerial Ace this time leaves it in low yellow health. We then outspeed and take it out with one more Aerial Ace, and his last Pokemon is a much weaker Weeping Bell that we outspeed in one shot with a stab super effective Aerial Ace. With our level cap now at level 37, we can get a couple of evolutions, starting out with Kurt evolving from a Fletchinder to a beastly Talonflame. This Pokemon is one of my favorites from Generation 6. At level 35, Bradley evolves from a Litleo into a beastly Pyroar. This is another Pokemon that's been running a physical moveset. As we progress through the game, we're going to be able to get our hands on some special attacking moves and switch around its EVs just a little bit so that this thing is beastly. Route 13 is very annoying to traverse, but on the right-hand side of the route, we can find ourselves the Flame Plate. And I keep doing this, but I left my plate in the Powerhouse. Whilst doing some training in the Powerhouse, we have a couple more evolutions with our starter Lane evolving from a Braxian to a Delphox. It finally gets the Psychic type, and this thing is a beastly Pokemon, or has been, so I can't wait to see what it does as we progress into the late game. And of course, we get the final evolution of the OG Fire Starter, with Amy evolving from a Charmeleon into a beastly Charizard. This, of course, is a great Pokemon. Once again, another Pokemon that suffers from that physical special. It's got a lot of access to physical moves, but has a much higher special attack. After a bunch of rock smashing on Route 13, we get ourselves a Slugma that we named Chris. It has an impish plus defense and minus special attack nature, and this Pokemon is phenomenal. Now, Clement and his electric type team should never be counted out. I seem to have a lot of difficulty against the electric type gym leaders. They're just good Pokemon, they're fast, and they hit hard. I do decide to lead Bradley and go for a workup turn 1. Without the workup, we wouldn't be able to bring Magneton to its sturdy because of our lack of physical attack. Emolga is going to go for Volt Switch and swap in Magneton. I know Magneton likes to go for electric terrain, so I go for Fire Fang, taking this thing down to sturdy as it sets up the terrain. This puts it in a heal lock where Clement uses a Hyper Potion. We take it back down to sturdy with a Fire Fang. Another Hyper Potion is used, and we take it back down to sturdy with one more Fire Fang. We can then take it out because of the potion shenanigans with one more Fire Fang, and if ever one of those had missed, this plan would have been for naught. As the Heliolisk comes out, we can go for Dig. It misses its Thunderbolt, the terrain goes away, and then we one-shot it with Dig. Emolga then comes back out, and we hit it with a Fire Fang that does a lot of damage, but procs its static ability. So after we get hit with a Volt Switch down to 48 HP, I decide to swap in Lane, who has a much higher special defense, and tanks the incoming Volt Switch very nicely, and then can fire off a Mystical Fire that takes out the Emolga. On Route 14, we have yet another Serena battle. This time she has a Greninja. Luckily, it only has Quick Attack and Water Shuriken. I have a plan leading Amy out, we're going to set up with some power-up punches and then sprinkle in a sunny day and sweep. Power-up punch against a Psychic-type Pokemon doesn't do much, but it gets us to +1. A light screen setup is perfectly fine, as we set up to +2 with a power-up punch. Disarming Voice does a little bit of chip damage to us, and I decide at this point we're going to set up the Sun. We then get hit with a nasty little Psychic to 69 HP. Nice. A +2 stab wing attack does not take out the Meowstic, and we get hit with a Disarming Voice to 63 HP. That's perfectly fine. We can hit this thing with another power-up punch to get us to +3 and take it out. Unfortunately, this is going to mess up our Sun turns, but the Absol comes out and can be one-shot with a power-up punch that gets us to +4. As the Greninja comes out, if we don't one-shot this thing, things could go south really quickly. It opts to go for Quick Attack instead of Water Shuriken, which is perfectly fine, and then a +4 power-up punch leaves Greninja on a sliver, and the sunlight fades. So my heart goes to my throat. I don't know that there's anything else I can do as I sit here pondering my future. I just click power-up punch and praise Arceus. Greninja goes for Quick Attack, so we can take it out with one more power-up punch. We can then have the last evolution of the run with Chris evolving into a beastly Magcar Go. I know this thing is quad weak to water, but trust me when I say this Pokemon is absolutely phenomenal, especially in Gen 6 where it gets access to Shell Smash. The 6th gym leader is Valerie in her fairy types. She's going to lead out Mawile, and I am leading Chris. As I said moments ago, this Pokemon is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to show you right here, right now. Turn 1, Mawile does outspeed us and opts to go for a Crunch, which doesn't do much damage because it is resisted, but it does proc our Flame Body ability, burning the Mawile. Beautiful. We go for a Shell Smash. This lowers our defense and special defense, but boosts our attack, our special attack, and our speed by 2 stages. This means we now outspeed the Mawile and can go for a second Shell Smash. Mawile goes for Iron Defense, raising its defenses, but we're running a special type attack, so that doesn't matter. My plan now is to start fishing for Omni Boosts with Ancient Power. We fire one off, and it knocks out the Mawile despite it not being very effective. Mr. Mime is then next out for Valerie. We fire off an Ancient Power, but it doesn't quite KO the Mr. Mime as it sets up a light screen. Valerie then goes for a Hyper Potion, and as this thing heals up, that is just one creepy-ass Pokemon. I'm telling you. We can fire off another Ancient Power, and unfortunately, it doesn't do half. That's okay, we can keep fishing for the Omni Boosts. Chris fires off one more Ancient Power, and it does KO the Mr. Mime because of a critical hit, and it gets the Omni Boost, so our defenses are up, and now we're at +5 special attack as the Sylveon comes out. We of course outspeed, and we can fire off a Stab Lava Plume that does get a critical hit, which I don't think mattered, one-shotting the Sylveon. You know, if you navigate the Pokeball Factory, you don't actually have to fight the Team Flare grunts. I'm going to fight them anyway because I need the experience. On Tuesdays in the Lost Hotel in the trash can, you can find yourselves a Rotom. We named ours Phil, and it has a Relax plus defense and minus speed nature. It's an electric ghost type though. Making our way back to Lumio City and into the professor's lab, we can head up to the 2nd floor and we can fix that non-fire type Rotom by interacting with these cardboard boxes. They're full of appliances and we can let Rotom go in there and choose the microwave oven form to gain the fire typing. We have to learn the move Overheat though. And if we delete Overheat, it will revert back to a regular Rotom. So now it's going to be an electric fire type as a microwave oven. And this is going to help us with our weakness to water types very nicely. I miss out on the Litwick encounter, but I think this one is a much better option. And even though Chris had a stellar battle against Valerie, for now at least, we're going to box him and replace him on the team with Phil. This is not goodbye forever, this is just goodbye for now. I truly do love this Pokemon. I have since Generation 2. It just really didn't come into its own until much, much later. Anastar City, we have another rival battle with Serena, but this time we're leading Phil against her Meowstic. It does go for Fake Out turn 1, which is a little bit annoying, but then we set up the Sun with a held Heat Rock, so we're going to have quite a few turns to play this one out. Now we get hit with a Shadow Ball that does a decent little bit of damage, and then I opt to go for an Ominous Wind, fishing for the Omni Boost, doing half of Meowstic's health. Psychic takes us to 32 HP before we fire off another Ominous Wind, taking it out. Unfortunately, Greninja comes out and we cannot stay in, so I swap into Wayne. Wayne's got a decent special defense here and tanks a Water Shuriken very nicely. We luck out and it only hits us 3 times, but we do get outsped and get hit with Water Shuriken again 3 more times. This takes us to 43 HP. We fire off a Thunder Fang, doing half. Well, we can't stay in, and I really don't know what to do at this point. The only option I really have is to swap in Lane. Lane swaps in, of course, on a Water Shuriken, but this time it only hits us twice, and we tank it very nicely. We did teach this Pokemon Grass Knot, which we fire off and knock out the Greninja. Things got a little dicey there, but we made it through. Absol then comes out, and we swap into Amy, who gets hit with a Night Slash on the swap in. The sunlight fades, and then we fire off a flamethrower that gets the one shot despite the sun going down. Flareon is her new Pokemon and last out. We hit it with an Air Slash, and we get hit with a Bite that takes us to 69 HP. Nice. I then swap in Kurt, who comes in on a Lava Plume that we tank very nicely, and then can take out the Flareon with an Acrobatics. Olympia and her psychic types really don't stand a chance against my team, especially with Wayne leading the charge. Her Sigilyph can be a little bit dangerous, but I know it's going to set up a light screen turn 1, so we've got this in the bag. We can set up a Howl turn 1. It does in fact set up a light screen, and then I opt to go for Thunderfang, thinking that we could have taken this thing out with the Zap Plate equipped, but unfortunately we leave this thing on a Sliver. I don't know why I didn't go for Bite. I was kind of a one-track mind as we get hit with an Air Slash. I know she's going to heal with a Hyper Potion, so we go for a Howl, getting us to +2, and then we take it out with a Thunderfang. Again, one-track mind. Slowking comes out, we outspeed and take it out with a +2 stab super effective Bite, which is what we should have done to the Sigilyph, and then Meowstic comes out and out-prioritizes us with a Fake Out, but after the flinch we can take it out with a +2 stab Bite. Between the 7th and 8th gym, there is a ton of storyline stuff that we have to do. We had to go to Lumios to the Lysander Cafe. We've had to battle Lysander one time before this. We're going to have to battle him as soon as we go into this little secret hideout. Then we have to battle him a 3rd time, making things very redundant. When you see all this storyline stuff for the first time, it's pretty cool. Maybe the 2nd time, but by the time you get to the 3rd and 4th runs, you're like, okay, can I press skip, please? Speed up does wonders, but it can only do so much. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the storyline stuff. It's just redundant after you've done so many of these runs. In the first 2 battles with Lysander, his Gyarados came out 2nd, and with quad super effective Thunderbolts from Phil, were easily taken out. In this battle, the Gyarados is going to be last and Mega Evolve, losing the Flying type, gaining the Dark type, and losing that quad weakness. So we've had to evolve our plan here, leading Kurt against the Bienshao, taking it out with a stab super effective Acrobatics. Pyroar then comes out next. We take it down to low yellow health with Acrobatics, and then a Hyper Voice takes us below half. Critical hit would have taken us out, but no matter, another Acrobatics takes out the Pyroar. Honchkrow then comes out, and we go for Roost turn 1, and we get hit with Night Slash. The plan here is to try to get the Flame Body to activate, burning the Honchkrow, and then we can pivot into Amy, set up the Sun, bring out Phil, finish out the battle. 5 full turns before Flame Body activates, burning the Honchkrow. We then, of course, pivot into Amy, who gets hit with a very weak Night Slash, sets up the Sun, holding the Heat Rock, and then we pivot in Phil. We get hit with a very weak Night Slash. Luckily, it did not crit, and we can take out the Honchkrow with a Thunderbolt. Gyarados then comes out and Mega Evolves. We hit this thing with a super effective stab Thunderbolt, and it leaves it on a Sliver. Luckily, the Sun is up, and Aqua Tail doesn't crit, leaving us at very low health. We go unpunished once again, and one more Thunderbolt wins us the battle. On Route 19 on the bridge, we have the back-to-back-to-back rival battles. I am prepared for this battle. The first run that I did of Pokemon X, I was not paying attention, and we lost Miltank on this bridge, and I still haven't forgotten about that. Now, as the Goodra comes out, I know this thing has Earthquake, so we just got to pay attention. We can easily swap in Amy or Kurt here for free on an incoming Earthquake. Kurt is the better option because Acrobatics does a ton of damage, not quite one-shotting I thought it would. We can tank a Dragon Pulse no problem and then fire off another Acrobatics. After defeating this battle, we get access to the HM for Waterfall. We can't quite use it until after we defeat Wolfric, but eventually we get access to a lot of good TMs. Now, I thought Chestnut would go for Spiky Shield, so I go for Roost, but the AI cheats going for Brick Break, so I take it out with a quad super effective Acrobatics because the AI cheats. Next up is Tierno, and his team is a little bit scary. He leads with a Talonflame, and we go for Thunderfang, doing a little bit over half, and then we get hit with a nasty Acrobatics to 69 HP. Nice. Another Thunderfang takes it out, and this brings out his ace, Crawdaunt. A scary Pokemon for sure that I know I can't one-shot, so I pivot into Phil. Phil comes out and gets hit with a Crab Hammer that takes to 13 HP. Holy... wow. Luckily, a Thunderbolt takes out the Crawdaunt. Man, losing Phil this late in the game would have been detrimental. I have serious plans for you in the Elite Four. We do swap in Amy on a Petal Dance that is quad resisted, and then of course we can fire off a Flamethrower that is going to one-shot it because of our better special attack. This just leaves Trevor, who leads with a Raichu. Our Pokemon are fully healed. In between the last battle and this one, we can fire off a Stab Flamethrower that takes out the Raichu very nicely. He then brings out his Aerodactyl. And Aerodactyl is a very scary Pokemon, being part Rock type, and it is very fast. I debate what I wanted to do here. I do not want to swap in Phil and chance losing him again, so I ultimately decide to stay in and go for Thunderfang. We do outspeed, and Thunderfang takes it below half and gets a clutch flinch. One more Thunderfang takes out the Aerodactyl, and I cannot believe we made it through that so effortlessly. Florges then comes out, and we fire off a Flamethrower, unfortunately not quite doing half, and it goes for Misty Terrain. We then fire off another Flamethrower that takes this thing into low red health before it fires off a Moonblast. That takes us down to 90 HP, lowering our special attack, but one more Flamethrower wins us the triple rival battle. I then backtrack to Route 18 to pick up Dave the Torkoal that has a serious neutral nature. This is to replace Phil for the upcoming battle because Phil overleveled, so we can't use it in the Wolfric battle. Now against Wolfric and his ice types, I could have used any Pokemon on my team. I decided to use Dave because it is a great Pokemon. We've done some training, and I don't foresee me using this Pokemon in the Elite Four, so we might as well give it its due in the limelight. The snow warning from Abomasnow sets up the hail, which is a little bit annoying, and of course we are going to get outsped by most of these Pokemon, getting hit with a very weak energy ball. We get rid of the hail by setting up the sun, and then we get hit with a resisted ice beam from the Abomasnow before we take it out with a quad super effective Stab Flamethrower. Avalugg is second out. We actually outspeed this Pokemon and one-shot it with a Stab super effective Flamethrower. Very nice. Cragnole then comes out and hits us with a Confuse Ray, which is very annoying, because we hurt ourselves in confusion. Why wouldn't we? Cragnole then gets rid of the sun, setting up the hail. I don't need the sun to beat this thing, but the chip damage from hail is going to be annoying. I snap out of confusion and fire off a nasty little Flamethrower, leaving Cragnole in low yellow health. We get hit with a little bit of chip, and then Wolfric goes for a Hyper Potion, fully healing up the Cragnole. Flamethrower drops it back into low yellow health. Chip damage from hail, Hyper Potion, Flamethrower, low yellow health, and I am sitting at 72 HP. Cragnole then fires off an Ice Beam that does a decent amount of damage, leaving us at 36 HP before I fire off one more Flamethrower, taking out the Cragnole and winning us the 8th and final Gym Badge. Thank you, Dave, for your service. We have the final battle with Serena on Victory Road just before making our way to the Elite Four. The plan here is to lead Wayne and do a little bit of setup and then sweep the team. After a fake out from the Meowstic, we set up the +2 with Nasty Plot. We have to take a Shadow Ball to the face, which we do very nicely, and then a stab super effective Dark Pulse takes out the Meowstic. Now I figured +2 would be enough to take out the Altaria, but unfortunately as we fire off a stab Dark Pulse, it leaves it at very low red health. We have to take a Dragon Pulse to the face, activating our Citrus Berry, and at this point I decide now I should set up the Sun. I was going to set it up on the Absol, but this is as good a time as any. We then have to take another Dragon Pulse, which we do very nicely at 67 HP, and then can take out the Altaria with a Sludge Bomb. I was hoping the Greninja would come out next, but unfortunately it's Absol. A +2 Sludge Bomb is enough to take it out, and is Greninja next? Don't know. Wayne grows to level 61, Phil gets to level 62, and then we see Greninja. We don't outspeed and we get hit with a Dark Pulse that crits us to 11 HP, but a +2 Sludge Bomb takes out the Greninja, luckily. Her last Pokemon, of course, is Flareon. I can't stay in with Wayne, so I opt to swap into Kurt. Kurt gets hit with a quick attack on the swap in, the sunlight fades, and then we fire off that Acrobatics that takes out the Flareon. And this brings us to the Elite Four. Here is the team leveled up and ready to take them on. Lane the Delphox with Psychic, Flamethrower, Grass Knot, and Will-O-Wisp. Phil the Rotom Microwave form with Overheat, Thunderbolt, Ominous Wind, and Sunny Day. Chris the Magcar Go, fresh off the bench with Ancient Power, Shell Smash, Recover, and Yawn. Wayne the Houndoom with Dark Pulse, Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, and Nasty Plot. Kurt the Talonflame with Acrobatics, Flare Blitz, Steel Wing, and Roost. And rounding out the team, last but not least, is Bradley the Pyroar with Hyper Voice, Flamethrower, Noble Roar, and Dark Pulse. The Elite Four this go around is going to be relatively difficult. Starting out, I decided to go up against the Dragon-type leader, Drasna. Her Dragalge is part Poison type, so I lead with our part Psychic type, Lane, and fire off a stab super effective Psychic that easily one-shots. Altaria is next out. Psychic does over half of its health, and then it just whiffs a Sing, so we can take it out with one more Psychic, and we are at full health as the Noivern comes out. A Psychic does over half of its health, and then it hits us with a Dragon Pulse that gets a critical hit, taking us to just above half health. One more Psychic takes it out, and her last Pokemon is Druddigon. I decide to stay in and go for Will-O-Wisp, which does connect, so the incoming Dragon Tail doesn't do that much damage and swaps us out for free. Wayne was brought in, which is a little bit scary, but I decide to stay in and go for Dark Pulse. It takes Druddigon low, and then Revenge could have killed us if it had crit. So that was risky, and I shouldn't have stayed in. A full restore from Drasna is perfectly fine because back-to-back Dark Pulses are enough to take out the Druddigon, winning us the first Elite Four battle. When I said losing Phil on the bridge would have been detrimental to the run, this is the battle that I was talking about, Seabold and his water types. I lead Phil against his Clawitzer with stab super effective Thunderbolts, which of course one-shots the Clawitzer. Out second is the Gyarados. Its quad weakness means it goes down to a single Thunderbolt, and Barbaracle is out third. It too falls to a single Thunderbolt, and that is 3 up and 3 down. Starmie is last, and this Pokemon is a bit scary. I know it's going to go for Light Screen, which it does turn 1, so I set up the Sun. Good play on my part. We then get outsped again and hit with a Psychic, which does a decent amount of damage, and I decide to fish for an Omni Boost with Ominous Wind, which we get. That means we outspeed the next turn and can take out the Starmie with a stab super effective Thunderbolt, and that was a very easy battle. Another easy battle is going to be Malva and her fire types because we have Chris. She leads a Pyroar, and I have a plan leading Chris. Turn 1, we do get outsped and hit with a Noble Roar that lowers our attack and special attack, so we're at -1. We tag Pyroar with a Yawn. We then get hit with a Hyper Voice, doing a decent little bit of damage, and we go for Shell Smash. This brings us to +2 speed and +1 attack and +1 special attack. Pyroar then falls asleep. We go for another Shell Smash, bringing us to +3 attack. And the Pyroar cooperates, staying asleep, so we can fire off an Ancient Power that knocks it out. We now outspeed everything but the Talonflame, so as the Torkoal comes out, we outspeed and one-shot it with a +3 Ancient Power. Chandelure comes out and goes down to a +3 Ancient Power as well. We're fishing for Omni boosts and not getting them. No big deal. As the Talonflame comes out, it's just going to go for Brave Bird, but because of our rock typing, it does very minimal damage, and then a quad super effective stab plus 3 ancient power takes out the Talonflame. Wickstrom is finally going to be easy for us in a run. His steel types have proven to be a little bit difficult in the last couple of runs we've done, but I have Wayne and a plan. His Klefki does have Prankster, so it gives priority to any kind of status moves. So we do get outsped as it sets up spikes, and we just go for Nasty Plot. We once again get outsped and tagged with Torment, which is a little bit annoying because we can't use the same moves back to back. A Flamethrower takes out the Klefki, and Probopass comes out. This Pokemon I was a little bit worried about. We fire off a Dark Pulse that takes it down to Sturdy, and we survive a non-critical hit Power Gem, which it doesn't crit, and we get back a little bit of health with our Citrus Berry. Wickstrom then uses a full restore. We bring Probopass right back down to Sturdy with Flamethrower. Another full restore, and Probopass goes back down to Sturdy with another Dark Pulse. Flamethrower then takes this thing out, and the sequence of events is perfect as the Aegislash comes out. We can use Dark Pulse, and at +2, we will one-shot this thing in its shield form. That's why we set up at the beginning of the battle. This just leaves his Scizor, which is quad weak to fire, so a stab, quad super effective Flamethrower easily one-shots that Pokemon, and that is the Elite Four finished. Champion Diantha has a very well-rounded team, and there's going to be a sacrifice needed to get through this battle. I don't think we can do it deathless. Leading against the Hawlucha, I lead Kurt, and we can one-shot this thing with a stab super effective, 110 base powered acrobatics. This, of course, is going to bait out the scariest Pokemon that she has, Tyrantrum. Nothing I have can survive a head smash from this Pokemon, so somebody has to make the ultimate sacrifice, and that Pokemon is Bradley. Bradley comes in on a head smash and is easily one-shot. Thank you for your service. The recoil damage takes Tyrantrum below half, and I can bring in Lane, outspeed, and knock this thing out with a super effective Grass Knot. Gourgeist comes out next, and it falls to a stab super effective Flamethrower. Goodra comes in, and I go for Psychic. This Pokemon should be a poison type, right? It's not, and we don't do half, and then we get hit with a Muddy Water. I opt to go for a Will-O-Wisp here. This was a bad play on my part. Luckily, we go unpunished, and we do connect, so we get a little bit of chip from the burn. Muddy Water connects, taking us all the way down to 22 HP and lowers our accuracy. Goodra drops below half health. We then fire off one more Psychic that connects, taking out the Goodra. Aurorus comes out next. I swap into Chris, and I have a plan here. First things first, we swap into a Thunder, which misses, so it was a free swap in, and now we're going to tag this thing with a Yawn. We're of course outsped, and it goes for Light Screen. Yawn connects, and then we get hit with a Thunder. I was going for Recover, so we heal up all of our health, and Aurorus falls asleep. Now it's time to pivot into Wayne. Aurora stays asleep, and we go for Nasty Plot. Everything's going so good so far until Aurorus wakes up and hits us with a Thunder. Not only do we get hit with a Thunder, but we get paralyzed, and that ruins my entire plan. I honestly didn't know what to do at this point, and this did catch me off guard. The Thunder misses, I go for Flamethrower, it does a decent amount of damage, the Light Screen wears off. We could take this Pokemon out, but the Gardevoir in the back is definitely going to take us out. Another Thunder connects, dropping us to Citrus Berry range, so we heal up with a Citrus Berry back over half health, and then we stay fully paralyzed. We get hit with another Thunder, because those things are like 95% accurate, as I go for another Nasty Plot. Still trying to set up. Again, I don't know what the hell I was doing here. Another Thunder, of course, connects and takes us out. I think she missed 2. I decide to bring in Kurt. This was a bad play on my part all the way around. This Pokemon has Thunder, Gardevoir has Thunderbolt and Trace. My whole plan was thrown off of its wheels here, and I really did not pick up the pieces good. A Flare Blitz is enough to take out the Aurorus, and last but not least is her Gardevoir. The reason this is a problem is because it has Trace, and it traces our Flame Body ability. It goes and Mega Evolves, which is fine, and we hit it with a nasty Acrobatics to low red health. We then get hit with a Thunderbolt that, of course, zaps Kurt right out of the sky. That was 2 Pokemon lost that I was not planning on losing. We can then bring Phil in as Diantha goes for a full restore, healing up the Gardevoir, and we fire off a Thunderbolt that gets a critical hit and paralyzes. Very nice. Unfortunately, Diantha has another potion, so she can hit another full restore, fully healing up the Gardevoir. Luckily for us, our next Thunderbolt connects and gets another paralysis because we're getting some of that RNG luck. And at this point, Phil can outspeed and definitely take out the Gardevoir with a stab overheat. What a way to end the battle. We lost some friends along the way, but we clutched it out in the end. Though we had a few more encounters to work with, we still have a very bad weakness to water types and not a good way to counter them. Phil was a great little counter, but a lot was riding on his shoulders. Ultimately, we made it through the game, we made it to the end, and all of our Pokemon put in the work. Even the couple that are sitting back in the box. It's probably surprising to some that we let Charizard sit, but honestly, Chris was the better option to take on Malva, and I knew I was going to need a sacrifice, and I didn't want it to be Amy. Nonetheless, the team came together and clutched it out in the end, and this was a very fun run. I hope you guys enjoyed this run as much as I did. Truly, this was an amazing run. I say that each and every time, but this one was something special. We got to use some really cool Pokemon, some unique, some we've seen before, and being able to change the Rotom forms as easily as we were was also pretty neat. I'm going to have to remember that for some of the other upcoming runs. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing if you've made it this far. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.